I love helping someone that would have thought they could never dream of owning a home. And that's what's been probably the most rewarding part about real estate for me.
Welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. My name is Logan Ricchetti with Modern Realty. This podcast is a combination of thoughts and opinions on the real estate market in Midland, Michigan with our local real estate agents from Modern Realty. Our mission is to create informed and confident buyer and seller clients, so tune in to learn more about Midland's real estate market.
Welcome to the Modern Agent Podcast. I'm Paul Clarke.
Glad to be here. I'm Peter Buist.
Good to see you, Peter.
Good to see you, Paul.
Yeah. So we see each other a lot in the office, spend some time on the golf course together. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of ask more questions, real estate and life related, that we don't maybe always talk about. We kind of hear each other's chatter about what we have going on with deals, but get a little more insight into our business and life today. Looking forward to some good conversation with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think clearly we have a mutual bond on the golf course and similar personalities. So I thought when Logan decided to turn over the Modern Agent Podcast to us, what better fit than you and I?
Yeah, it was good. I think I was on a boat out off of the Jersey Shore when Logan texted me and asked me to do the podcast, and then crunched me for, gave me about a minute or two to find somebody that I wanted to do one with. And thankfully you were available, and it sounded like you had been thinking about doing it as well. So here we are.
Here we are.
But I guess out of curiosity, you've explained a little bit kind of some of your past, but what got you into real estate? Like, how did you end up choosing that as a career and becoming a realtor?
That's a great question. Actually, I have a bachelor's degree in plastics engineering from Ferris State University, and I, in 2005, quit my job to stay at home with the kids, and I did that for 13 years. It was an amazing experience. I'm grateful to have done it. And real estate had actually presented itself a couple times in that time period because there's a lot of part-time agents. And I entertained the idea at one point, but we just still felt strongly it was important for me to be home. So in 2018, I decided to pull the trigger and get into real estate. And it was really, for me, it was twofold. One, I have a passion for service. And some of the things I've done in my life, I really like helping people. And I think what makes you a good real estate agent is when you have that mindset that we're not just trying to sell somebody into a house. We're actually trying to help them through a very complicated and sometimes difficult process.
Yeah. And
so that service aspect for me was really appealing. And then the second part was it offers a lot of flexibility. I still had 3 young boys. They're now teenagers, and driving them around and getting them to appointments and practices. And it offers a lot of flexibility for that. And so that's really worked well in our dynamic of trying to, maintain a family unit.
Yeah, it offers flexibility, but sometimes when you're working with a lot of different individuals and families, it can tie up your time and make it difficult to get that family time. But it's good to have that work-life balance.
Yeah, I think, to me, it's mindset. It could be, you could get negative about being interrupted at times. I always look at it as, you know what, I can be at my kid's function and still spend a couple hours on a client's need. And it's up to us to have those boundaries and put into place what that work-life balance is. How about you, Paul? What fueled your passion to get into real estate?
I came from working in the technology industry for about 13 years, and my father-in-law was actually a broker and owned a real estate company in Coleman for a long time. So my wife had some background in real estate just from growing up in that world. And about 15, 16 years ago, we got into flipping houses. So kind of my love for real estate and passion for it started then. And from flipping houses, we then picked up some rentals. And I had talked to my father-in-law for quite a few years about getting my license and getting into it. And he talked me out of it for quite a while. But the unfortunate part was the company I was with was heading in the wrong direction, ended up going out of business. So during that time is when I transitioned in, got my license, became a full-time real estate agent, as well as continuing to flip and have rentals. So that kind of steered me. It just seemed like a natural fit. We enjoyed the real estate world. My wife has some background in it, so she knew what we were getting into.
Excellent. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good segue if you're already flipping houses. And you hear that a lot, trying to manage not only the costs, but, when you're selling real estate as an investor, it really comes down to that return on investment. So if you can take over that reins of being the realtor, it can really help with that bottom line.
Yeah, it can. And it's been very beneficial. And that prior experience I had before getting my license of just understanding the market, values of homes, what people are looking for. Certain neighborhoods are going to hold more value than others. So when you're working with investors, it helps to know really how far can you take your house and what you want to do to it to improve its overall condition without pricing yourself out of a neighborhood. So bringing some of that to the real estate world has been helpful, and kind of one of those things that I've found has added a lot of value for me personally from my side and working with clients.
Sure.
There's some past knowledge.
A lot of risk in flipping.
There is. Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, it's been profitable for me, some more so than others, but it's definitely some learning curves, a lot of frustration you can go through. If you do a lot of the work yourself, it's more of a time commitment, but when you start hiring contractors out, then sometimes you're at their mercy. Are they showing up on the job? Are they doing things like they said and following a timeline? So it can be stressful, but rewarding.
That's a pretty good asset to have, though. I'm sure you have investor clients as well. So when you're talking to them, you got a little more street cred, I guess, if you will, having experience yourself in flipping and all the different dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. That's helped tremendously sometimes. But even when people aren't flipping, if the house just needs some updating that hasn't been done, helping people see the value of, if you're going to live in the house for, say, 5 to 10 years, if that's their plan, updating kitchens or bathrooms, helping them understand what the additional value will be to them. So, Pete, we have similar family dynamics with kids that are involved in a lot of school activities, extra sports, things like that can tie up our time. How have you found it best for you to balance work and taking care of your clients, but also making sure that you're available to your family and your kids?
Yeah, it can be a challenge at times. I think, for me, I'm in a co-parenting situation, and whether you're married or not, it's really important that you have a good partner to do those things with. For me, it's really about knowing the schedules of the kids and my schedule and balancing them. All three of them are in sports. All three of them, two of them do orchestra and marching band. And so I think what's really important is to communicate with your clients up front what your schedule is, what you prefer to do. There was a time when I said I don't work Sundays because that's time for family. But when the market got really hot, sometimes you had to compromise on those things. And it's really important, I think, is communication with your kids, with your clients, and really keeping a calendar that is up to date.
Sure. Yeah, that's very important. If you're not putting your stuff on your calendar and you're not following that, things can go haywire pretty quick. My wife and I often laugh. Our kids will come up and say, "Hey, it'll be like Tuesday, and like, what are we doing this weekend?" And be like, "I have no idea what we're doing this weekend. We'll take this one day at a time," because sometimes there's just so many activities, whether it's school sports, travel sports, run around with church things, or trying to see family, friends, things like that. And sometimes you just have to slow it down and take it day by day.
Yeah, I think the past where you would have family dinner every night, when the kids were young, we always ate around 5:00. I just have to send a message out to my boys, like who's home for dinner, who has practice, who's working. All right, this is what I'm making. You can graze whenever you get home.
Yeah. Just keep an open bar there for them of food.
Pretty much.
Get it when you get home. Balancing I think work, whether you're in a field like we are or you have your regular 9 to 5, there's always a balance there for everybody, and trying to figure that out and manage it. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy about where we're at Modern is having so many agents that are helpful, that allow us when we're on vacation or we're at a sporting event, we're going with our kids somewhere. We have other agents in our office that are always ready and willing to help us show our clients homes and do what we need to when we can't be there. So that's one thing that for me has been very helpful and rewarding, is having a good team around us to support us.
Absolutely. And I think that's a testament to, our broker and owner, Logan Ricchetti, that he has created a mindset and an atmosphere that is a team environment. Quite often you'll get a email or a text, can you go show a house for me? Can somebody open a door? Who has a contractor? And I think, that really starts from the top down in the way that we were trained as agents. I only know what we do at Modern Realty. I don't know what the rest of the organizations do out there, but the team-oriented family atmosphere that we have at Modern really is very helpful to our careers.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, it is. I worked for a different brokerage for about a year before I came to Modern. So I have some outside, history, and that was good. I learned a lot during that time. But the things that I had heard about Modern, my father-in-law, who was a previous broker, he's retired, but he had told me when I got my license to come to Modern. And so when I didn't, he was a little bit surprised.
What are some of the key aspects that got you into Modern that made you decide to change over there?
Yeah. I was looking for something that was going to provide an opportunity for more training and support. I was at a small brokerage, and from everything that I knew about Modern, I knew a couple agents there prior to coming over. I was like, I knew that's what I needed. And then coming in and seeing really how Modern treated agent to agent, like you said, from the top down. I was welcomed right away at the brokerage. Seemed like anybody and everybody was willing to help with whatever I needed. And we're self-employed. So whether you're at Modern or you're at another brokerage in town, ultimately we're all self-employed working for ourselves. But finding that we do have such a big group that is willing to help us all succeed has been huge. It's a major part of why I believe we're successful as a whole brokerage too, and not just independent agents.
Did you get to do a boot camp that was led by Logan?
I did not. I came in kind of like right on the heels of that.
Think Jocko.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense. I was actually, so in 2018, I was going through divorce. I was going through sobriety.
Okay.
I've been sober 6 years. And when I came to Modern, I didn't even have my license. And Logan's like, you're going to boot camp. I don't normally allow somebody to go to boot camp until you've got your license, but I think it'd be good for you.
Sure.
And so here I am, this very intense guy. Logan is so passionate about real estate that he just like force-fed all this stuff. And it was the one thing that I really loved about the way Logan taught me real estate and the people in those rooms was that it was about helping others. It wasn't about, hey, if you do this, you're going to get rich. If you do this, you're going to, rule Midland real estate. It was always about helping others, whether it was your client, whether it was another agent in Modern. And actually, he taught us scenarios how to help other agents from other brokerages, because ultimately, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to help buyers and sellers close on their homes in a very difficult, sometimes annoying transaction.
Sure.
And the more helpful that we are, the better type of agents we will be. But man, those boot camps with Logan, I mean, there was a lot of intense. You left there. I left there wanting to run through a brick wall. It was great. I loved it.
That's good. Yeah, it's kind of motivation we need. Like, we're self-employed. You have to find the motivation to get out there and get to work every day. So that's good to have. One of the first pieces of advice I was given in real estate was to be friends with everybody. And I was kind of like, well, I mean, that makes sense. But so this agent explained to me a little bit more that it's going to be difficult sometimes. Like some transactions are just a nightmare for whatever reason. And a lot of things are out of our control. We could try to control as much as we can, but some things are out of our control. There's a lot of people involved in every transaction. You have sometimes parents get involved when it's young kids buying a house. You have appraisers, you have inspectors, you have your loan officers, and agents on the other side. And that one piece of advice, like you said, that Logan taught you guys in that boot camp of sometimes we help other agents. Well, we're helping other agents sometimes, and not because they don't know what they're doing, but to keep establishing a good relationship, which in the end helps our clients. And that's really what it's all about. And at the time I was new to the business and didn't fully understand it, but now it's like, yeah, it might be difficult to be friends with everybody, but if that helps my clients, if that makes it more likely for my clients to get their house sold or for me to get somebody into a house as a buyer, then that's what I'm going to try to maintain. It's good relationships.
Absolutely. In our business, the community isn't that big, you
Right.
know? So, and in our friendships, if you just go look at your, your Facebook friendships, I don't know how many I have, but probably each one of them knows 4 or 5 different agents. So, it doesn't do you any good to say anything unkind. We always should be supporting other agents, whether from our brokerage or not, because it is a difficult business. And you're ultimately charged with trying to help our clients get a house in a very difficult seller-oriented business. And so, to start having difficult relationships with other agents, you're already putting your clients in a difficult position to win homes. And so, I think anytime you're dealing with someone else, it's, the basic rules should be kind, be supportive, and, certainly never badmouth, which we see it a lot on social media.
Sure.
It's so easy
World
to
we
have
live in.
keyboard courage and a cultural indifference to saying things. I think we at Modern, this week's headlines notwithstanding, have abstained from trying to have a view on any of these hotbed topics. It's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
We all have our own personal opinions.
Sure.
So I guess maybe we segue into that. How do you deal with social media and the access that we have today in dealing with hotbed topics?
I try to stay away from it, if I'm being completely honest. There are some things that like I just generally don't care to talk about that much. You're not going to change anybody's mind or opinion on some things. But in our world, you'll be out showing a house and somebody might state their opinion on something one way or another, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. And my approach is just basically just listen. I tried my best not to say or respond to anybody that is, talking about religion, politics, things like that. At times there's, I'll insert myself and have comments, but for the most part, I just try to stay away from it. I think it's for the better.
Yeah, I think that's a really good policy. And, it's one of those things where it's like perspective and perception really is what it comes down to. And if you're putting stuff out there that doesn't come from you, the perspective is not portrayed when you put it through social media, and it might be perceived wrong. So I agree. We try to stay away from those hotbed topics. Like my joke is like I'm Switzerland, on social media. No opinion at all. But those are difficult situations. Sometimes you just have to, shy away from them as far as engaging, but be supportive when somebody's, like I said, just kind of nod your head and say, that sounds really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether you agree or disagree, sometimes that's just the best approach to take. But I do feel that sometimes, the real world is very different than what we see on the news and social media. Through that lens, you'd think that, what if you have this viewpoint and this person has this viewpoint, that you can never work together or get along. And I run into people all the time that have different viewpoints than I do. But we're out there working together. You're helping people. They still appreciate you. I appreciate them. And you get along, where news and social media sometimes doesn't make it look like that can be possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I get back to like the foundational reasons why I got into real estate. And I always go back to it's service work.
Yep.
It's helping people It's their hopes and dreams. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's really expensive to buy a home.
Sure.
It's really expensive to sell a home, and can be complicated and annoying. So our job really is to help walk them through the process. And all these other things, they're just noise that social media and the actual media portrays in such a negative way that I think avoidance is probably the best answer there.
Yeah, for sure. So Pete, you had mentioned, helping people. That's kind of one of the main reasons why you got into real estate, and you love helping people. What are some of the more rewarding things that you've experienced in real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. And I've actually had the opportunity to help a couple of different people. I've been doing this 6 years. That came from really tough backgrounds. I mentioned that I'm sober. I work with a lot of people in recovery. And so I've had the opportunity to work with people that at one time were homeless and working their way through drug court or some other really difficult hardship. And, we have an opportunity, and this goes back to the boot camps and the things that we learn at Modern, that we can help people, to realize the dream of owning a home, and that the process is not impossible. And so that's been really rewarding for me. Of course, I want the $600,000 buyer. We need every client to be successful. I still have to put food on the table for my kids. I got 3 kids going to college soon.
Yeah.
But really, I love helping someone that would have thought they could never dream of owning a home. And that's what's been probably the most rewarding part about real estate for me.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of rewarding parts of it. I had a recent closing, and at our final walkthrough with the client, I knew a little bit of his background just from what he had said as we got to know him through the whole buying process. But we got to the final walkthrough day before closing, and he was almost emotional and said he came from nothing. Like, he grew up with nothing. So just the fact that he could own a home, and it was a nice home. Like, he got a very nice house. It just meant so much to him. And that's the type of stuff, like you'd mentioned earlier, just helping people. And sometimes you don't realize how meaningful it is to people to be able to buy or sell a property. And when you go through those moments, it's pretty special.
Yeah, I used to make the joke before I became a realtor that I bought and sold 3 houses and had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. But that was kind of the truth.
Yeah.
And so I use that as motivation to make sure that my clients know every step of the process, what they're doing. And it doesn't really matter what their background is. That should always be your goal. Whether they're a $100,000 FHA buyer or they're a cash buyer at whatever price point they want, it really should be about helping them through the process, making it informed and confident, which is, part of our mission statement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, and some people, they have no clue what they're getting into. Some think they know, and that can be a little more difficult to work with. I'd rather have somebody that says, I don't know anything, than think they know what they're doing or how the process works, but they tell us that, and if we don't take it a little further and ask the questions of like, hey, what about this or this? Are you familiar with how this works? Then we can just trust them, and that can kind of snowball and become a problem later. But yeah, making people very confident and informed up front. I have a current client that is out of the area, and he's selling his brother's house. And he told me about halfway through the process, he goes, I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't this. So thank you. He's like, this has just been very easy. I think he thought it was gonna be more difficult than it was, but we did a lot on the front end to prepare. And when we can do that with the client, we can take these stressful situations of buying a house, selling a house. It's a lot of money, and these are people's investments, whether they realize it or not. Real estate's an investment, and when you're dealing with that, it can be stressful. So being able to ease that for people, that is a rewarding part of our job.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what's really important is to take ourselves out of it. They're looking to us as the expert. We're the doctor of real estate. They need us to help them make these really, really important and expensive decisions,
Yeah.
but take our personal selves out of it and just make it about, what's the data say, and working through the process of buying or selling the home. So when you get a client who has done it before and said, well, in the past, I always started an offer at, 10% or more under asking price,
Yeah.
that's considered a very low ball offer in today's market. So, we need to have our ducks in a row as far as, showing them what a good offer is through market data or whatever means that
Right.
you're going to do, because you're right. We get these, the easiest ones are the ones who are looking for you to
Lead them the whole way.
lead them the whole way. Exactly. The ones that are like experts already.
Yeah.
We just need to be patient with them and show them the process.
Yeah. So what do you tell somebody that comes to you that wants to buy a house, like the very first couple of things that they should do to start that process?
The first thing a buyer should do when looking to purchase a home is they should interview a buyer's agent, and they should be looking for an agent who is willing to give them more information and knowledge than that agent is willing to receive in compensation. And that's actually I kind of stole that from the book, The Go-Giver, but I love that analogy because this goes back to that service work that I talked about. And if you're going to buy a house and your agent doesn't make you feel confident that they are going to walk you through this process, you should go interview a new one. And I think that's the goal of every modern agent, to show an prospective client and buyer on it, or even on the seller side, is that we are the person you want to hire. We are the expert. We're going to be able to walk you through this. You're going to have a good buying experience. And that really, to me, should be your goal as a buyer.
Yeah. So after they hire an agent, what would be the next step that they should take?
For sure, they should get a pre-approval.
Yeah.
And if your buyer's agent's doing their job, they should have 2 to 3 lenders that they would recommend you interview. Again, you're interviewing a lender because they work for you.
Sure.
Too many times I get buyers that say, well, I don't even know if I can get a pre-approval.
Right.
So I like to recommend 3 lenders, because 3 lenders that I've worked with that I know will do a good job. That way the buyer is empowered to make that decision of which one they have a better fit with.
Sure.
But that pre-approval, that sets the stage for, your budget, the location, all those other things that we're going to identify as we go through the home buying process.
Yeah, that's good. I'd agree with both those points. And I think that, the pre-approval really tells that buyer, like, what can I actually shop for? They might think that they can afford a $300,000 house, but maybe they can't. And I've seen it actually happen to myself years ago. We were buying something and our credit was ran, and there were charges from like 6, 7, 8 years ago from a company that I had been with that had my name on like a business credit card that they had defaulted on. It was impacting my credit. So a lot of times there are things that you might not even be aware of when you're trying to buy a house and you need to get a loan for something, that talking to a lender, going through that whole process, making sure that you're not wasting your time looking at a bunch of houses that maybe you can't afford, or maybe you can afford more and you want to get into something that has another bedroom or bathroom or more space, a little more acreage. It really sets that tone for what you should be shopping for.
Yeah, I get it. And I think there's a lot of agent mentalities, like, I'm not going to work with somebody who doesn't have a pre-approval. I think that's the wrong idea. I think your job should be to help them obtain a pre-approval and walk them through that process. And you're right. That's going to be what sets the tone for exactly what they can afford and what their budget is.
Yeah. So speaking of buyers and showing homes, we've been in a lot of houses. We see a lot of things. What's the most interesting thing you've seen in a house, or something that caught you off guard?
I showed a property one time that had a deer farm. We'll just go with that.
Okay.
And my clients came up and were walking the property that was 40 acres. And there was somebody had shot a deer, clearly, and there was a blood trail.
And just left.
And so that was, it was in December, or November, so there was snow.
Yeah.
But that was a little eerie
Yeah.
to just see this, blood trail going for a couple hundred yards. My clients were from Detroit, and that led them to ask, are there bears up here?
Right.
And I said, well, yeah, there's bears, but hopefully they're hibernating.
Yeah.
I don't know. Inside the house, I think probably a reptile farm is the weirdest thing I ever seen. And there was reptiles running around in that room, free, little dragons and stuff.
Did you know this before you showed up?
I didn't know that it would just be running free.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some pretty interesting things out there. I was showing a rental property in Saginaw. So there was a tenant in there and there was a basement. So we were in the house getting ready to go to the basement and opened the door, and like the whole staircase was just like Freddy Krueger stuff and like fake blood splattered on the walls. And my clients just like freaked right out immediately. But yeah, we see some crazy things.
How do you not approach that as a listing agent and say, we got to show this house?
Rental properties are a different animal in of themselves. Most tenants don't want their landlord to change. So if their property is for sale, the landlords can't get their tenants to do too much. They live there and can do what they want. So you walk into some wild things sometimes.
How about your final walkthrough? You've ever had a major surprise on your final walkthrough?
I have. So actually I'm glad you asked that. I don't know if we've talked about this before. One of my more interesting stories in real estate, and this was one of those that showed a lot of value in the reason why it's important to have an agent represent you. A lot of people, it's fine. People want to sell for sale by owner. Some real estate transactions go very smoothly. Others don't. And when they don't, that's when it's good to have an agent. So we showed up for final walkthrough, and there's 2 garage doors, and there's a brick column between them. And the seller had backed a trailer into that column and pushed it right into the garage. So it took a lot of the frame. It was a mess. And the seller's agent didn't know, and the sellers didn't tell anybody. So we were immediately like, what do we do? So, long story short, we obviously reached out to the agent who reached out to the sellers. They owned up to the fact that, yes, they knew that they backed into it, but for whatever reason, just didn't tell anybody, maybe thought it would go unnoticed. Delayed our closing for a couple of days. We got it figured out. The sellers, because they still owned the property, were able to, I think they filed an insurance claim. We got quotes. They paid the contractor. It all got fixed. Everybody was happy in the end. And like my buyers were just very thankful that they had representation to figure out how to get through this. Because otherwise they had you have no idea. So that was probably one of the bigger things I ran into at a final walkthrough. Found broken windows a couple times, like basement windows. So that, they're smaller, maybe a rock hit them from a lawnmower or something pretty small, but nothing worse than somebody backing a trailer into a garage.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. My very first deal in real estate, you're doing the final walkthrough, and I'm not expecting to find anything. And we get to the bathroom, and the toilet, in the inspection, the toilet was loose. So the seller was supposed to fix the toilet properly to the base. The toilet was in the middle of the bathroom.
It wasn't installed.
And, we're an hour and a half from closing. So that was interesting. It got taken care of. The listing agent, apparently the plumber had gotten called away in a rush job and had forgotten to get back there and didn't tell anybody. Quick addendum that it will get done, and we got through it. But, when you're your very first deal in real estate, I was like, what do I do here?
Right.
So that was a learned lesson.
A little surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we're always learning. There isn't like a cut and dry approach to every deal. There's always something that can catch you off guard.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to like you talked about with a for sale by owner situation. Not a lot of people. There's a few people that think they can represent themselves, but there is a lot of moving parts to any transaction. And so most people not only want that representation, but they need that representation because they don't know how to deal with a toilet in the middle of the floor or a column on a garage that's been backed into. And that's part of our job is to, again, continue to walk them through the process until we close. So that's a really important part about hiring a buyer's agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there are some deals that go, just fine, like start to finish, very smooth. And I think in those, if you look back at them and say, well, what did I really do there? Well, on the front end, it's the preparation. It's making sure that our buyers and sellers are confident that they're informed in the whole process. And as we go through, there's no surprises. They know what to expect, and off you go. So,
yeah, I agree. That goes back to the basic foundational principles of preparing as an agent and knowing how to do your job and constantly training and talking with other agents. And that's one of the things we do at Modern Realty is every week we meet as an agency. We call it the Modern Huddle. I call it the AA for real estate. We share ideas. We learn from each other's successes and sometimes, our challenges that maybe didn't go as well and we would have done differently. And I think that sharing of ideas is what makes our team unique, what makes us unique
Absolutely.
agents. And that's only is a benefit to our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we have a lot of success stories, but we also make mistakes. I've definitely made them. And it's best, you just own up to them and you learn from them and don't repeat them.
Yeah, it goes back to communication is key.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Pete. It was nice talking real estate and life with you. Hopefully everyone else enjoyed it. Again, I'm Paul Clarke with Modern Realty.
Thanks, Paul, for hosting, and I'm Peter Buist from Modern Realty.
If you need a buyer's agent or seller's agent, reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to help you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Modern Agent Podcast. Please follow at Modern Realty Midland on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you need to buy or sell a house, please reach out to Modern Realty by going to www.modernrealty.us. Modern Realty, your home, our focus.